Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here today to talk about the new 2026 Atomic Maverick 96 CTI.
That one.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some other Mavericks up here too. So for this season, for 2025, we did get two new Mavericks. We got the new Maverick 105 and the new 115. I skied them a bunch. Got to ski them out at Powder Mountain in Utah. And do all sorts of cool stuff on them. And then the narrower skis, the 86C, the 88 Ti, and the 95 Ti, they all stayed the same for 2025. I feel like if you spend enough time in this world and you follow ski development,
there's some patterns.
You could pretty easily guess that for 2026 we were going to get kind of the same changes, or at least a similar theme, kind of following the same path. So even just visually, before we get started here, this is the 105, the 2025 105. Bob, you have a 95 right there.
Yep.
You want to put it next to my 105 here real quick?
Different length, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. And, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to look at these three skis and say, well, that one looks more like that one.
Right.
So, you know, kind of similar shaping concepts, similar construction concepts. And we skied them a bunch this year. We skied the 88 quite a bit too, which we'll talk about in a separate video. A lot of what we talk about today certainly applies to the 88. I will say that like the on-snow performance is a little different between the two. It feels like they excel at different things. And 88 to 96 is a pretty big jump in width.
Yeah. Did you feel like the 2025 88 Ti to this was a big jump? Because I think that the new ones are more different.
That's a great point. It is. It's a bigger jump now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before they just felt like slightly wider version of the same thing. And, you know, it's not like this, we're only adding 1 millimeter here to 96, but for whatever reason, they do feel different now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could also say that they feel consistent through the whole line now from a construction perspective. But when you get to like on-snow capabilities and performance, yeah, I feel like if anything, this thing, this is like probably what we should end the video with, but if anything, this thing almost aligns more with what 105 does rather than what 88 does.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's at least my perspective.
Yeah, there's a little creeping in there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like Mavericks, I feel like I've always kind of leaned towards a little bit more towards the free ride end of the all-mountain spectrum. You know, they include things like Horizon Tech in the tips, and there's obviously some soft snow focus in their design and development, you know, compared to like a Mantra or something like that.
Yeah.
So, if anything, I think they take they continue to shift towards that free ride side of the spectrum.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So spark notes up front on this one. You want to ski, Bob? You want to tell us what changed for construction? And then we look at flex. I think weight stayed about the same.
Yeah. So as opposed to their Omatic core, which they've had in the Maverick Ti series with 2 full sheets of metal, a lighter poplar wood core, we follow the 105 CTI build now in this 96. So they moved from light poplar wood to a mix of poplar and ash. And the addition of the ash is kind of the biggest addition, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
They also use carbon and Titanol in here. You know, definitely Titanol underfoot. It seems like it's less metal. They're replacing the 2 sheets with the ash in order to steady and boost the sturdiness of the ski, because you mostly find ash wood in more race-like skis.
Yeah.
So they are kind of focusing on that. Additionally, Atomic talks about how that use of ash eliminates the need for more like fiberglass and adhesive materials. So they're cutting waste by focusing more on denser wood as opposed to different glass laminates and more resin.
Yep.
So a move towards more eco-friendly construction.
Yeah, and it feels like something that they're hanging their hat on a
Yep.
little bit. It's in like just about all the like marketing material that we've seen.
Yeah.
It points that out.
But whatever these old Maverick TIs had in terms of a thin profile, that philosophy carries through.
Yep.
When you look at this core profile, it is extremely thin. It is,
If anything, it's like thinner.
it's like, yeah, it's definitely like one of the thinner core profiles out here for a ski of this stature. And it really tapers from full sidewall, into cap, pretty close into the middle of the ski. So there is that cap build, really helps with the mobility and agility of the ski. And when we get to softer snow performance, it also kind of takes the edge off when you're trying to be more mobile and agile in softer snow. Horizon Tech 3D, so we saw that with Maverick 105 as well as Bent's is updated Horizon Tech. So basically there's more Horizon, and we never know whether to talk about Horizon Tech in construction or in shape. So
Yeah.
it kind of works in both.
It segues,
Because it does have a different material up here, but it does allow for better flotation due to the shape.
Yeah.
So updated Horizon Tech, there's basically more Horizon in the 96 than this outgoing 95.
Still none in the tail.
None in the
Which
tail.
has always
Yeah,
been
pretty
like,
flat
that's a
tail.
Maverick Maven thing.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, pretty similar weights. Atomic states this at 1,900 grams and this 179. Just had this 188 on the scale at about 1,980 grams. So
Yeah.
very similar in terms of weight and thinness of the ski.
Yeah, pretty middle of the road there, but I would say slightly on the lighter side.
Yeah. And then flex-wise, it's a little bit more flexible
Yeah.
than the 95 here.
Yeah, I was doing that before you came in here.
Yeah, and these TI skis have always been on the stiffer side of the spectrum. We've always put them up there with like a head core as being one of the lighter and yet stiffer skis on the market.
Yeah.
The new 96 here just takes a little bit off the top in terms of that longitudinal flex.
Yeah. Another thing, getting way ahead of
Love it.
ourselves here. They've always been pretty good comparisons to head cores.
Yeah.
They remain pretty good comparisons
To-
to head
to a
cores.
new head core,
Both of which
yeah.
change pretty significantly.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, it's very interesting. You're going to still hear people be like, yeah, Mavericks and cores are pretty similar. But
Yeah.
if you compare like this to a Core 99, it's like completely different.
Also, I'll add to that, Jeff. We've removed metal and added carbon in Maverick, yet Core
Flipped.
has removed carbon and added metal. So,
Yeah.
what a world.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for shape. Or
Construction.
for
Yeah.
construction. I'm excited to talk about shape. That's why I got ahead of myself. Do you want to follow along with that one, and we can kind of look at some differences here?
Yeah.
One thing that's pretty significant that's not going to come across visually, they did drop about 1 meter in turn radius. So what do I got here?
You're 18.
I'm 18.
Yeah, this is in the 180. This 95 is 19.3.
Yeah, so about 1 meter drop in turn radius. Still not like a short turn radius. 18 is, again, kind of average.
Yep.
Similar tip rocker profile, I would say. I do think the new ski, it feels like it has slightly more splay. But overall, and like looking at the length, they're fairly similar.
Yeah.
A big thing in the shovel, and this kind of corresponds with that new Horizon 3D, there's considerably more taper. And that was something that was like extremely noticeable here on 105. Like when we went from Maverick 100 Ti to
Yeah.
Maverick 105 CTI, it was like, well, that's a completely different shape, much
Yeah.
more of like a free ride tip. And essentially that tip shaping concept has now trickled into the narrower skis too, which for me at least is a big reason why I feel like they've shifted a little further towards that free ride soft snow side of the performance spectrum.
Yeah, both new 96 and 88, we felt the same way about that.
Yeah.
But given the width
Yeah.
of this, just kind of brings it out a little bit more.
Yeah, and speaking to the 88, just momentarily, like this tip shape in a mid 90 ski or specifically 96 underfoot isn't like shocking. In the 88, it's more shocking.
Yeah.
Because in that width range or in that category, it's much more of an outlier to have that much early taper.
Yeah.
So that, like, I think when we talk about the 88, that'll be a big theme is like, what others, are there any other skis that like take that big taper shape into the 88 world? Like off the top of your head, it's tough to think of one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are, so we can have that conversation when we get there. And then a little bit more rise in the tail on this new ski, and in this it's a little bit more length than it is splay.
Atomic says it's a 5% increase in tail rocker.
Length.
Yeah.
That's about what it feels like. And then again, a little bit more early taper too. I would say like similar, like 5% longer early taper.
Yeah, well, the bigger difference in the shaping comes in the width of the tail, where to make a shorter radius, you get a couple more millimeters in the tail there.
Yeah.
The tip and the waist are more similar.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more like pintail-y.
Yep.
So, pretty cool. Did we miss anything for shape, Bob? I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, there's a little, due to the increase in the tail rocker, there's a shorter camber length as well. So this 95 just has a slightly longer.
I mean, there's a shorter
camber.
effective edge in basically every scenario.
Right.
Do you need a ski to talk about performance? Does it help to hold it?
I like holding things, sure.
It might help you to hold it. It might, spur some memories. Do you want to talk about on trail first?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about your experience on trail?
Yeah, I got a couple of good days.
We were on a media day way back in January.
Which was nice, like packed powder groomers.
Yep.
Cold, grippy snow.
Yep.
The first thing you notice is that due to that shorter effective edge you were talking about, it kind of wants to start that turn, smoothly, but it's not as crisp as the 95, which wanted to dig in and really kind of rip you around a little bit earlier. This one, there's a little bit more of a hesitation. You notice it more in that packed powder as opposed to firmer snow.
You also had some extremely firm days on this ski.
It was horrible.
And looked like you were mostly just skidding around.
It was more of a survival mode than the earlier time when it was far more pleasurable from a skiing perspective. And in that light, it was still nice to have metal in the ski.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing. It doesn't get bounced around a whole lot when it was really firm, but again, not much else was getting purchased on that stuff anyway. You'd have to go World Cup GS ski to really make that stuff go, but packed snow, it worked great.
We've talked about this just between the two of us a couple times, and I'm curious your opinion, because we haven't talked about it exactly in this application. So one thing that I find in this new ski is it feels a little bit smoother in just about every application. Although you're not getting like purchase on that firm snow, did you find like vibration damping pretty good?
Yeah, I did find there was a difference though between longer turns and faster turns, where this 95 Ti
on firm
snow at high speeds in long turns was great. And then this operates better in short to medium radius turns. Part of that is due to the length. At a 179, it's a shorter ski for me, but I also tend to like other competitors in these lengths as well. So, but short to medium radius, I felt the smoothness was more pronounced than in longer radius turns, where you are kind of fighting against this taper shape in a longer radius, higher speed carved turn.
I didn't ski it as much as you on media day. I did ski it. I think there's at least one clip of me on it from that January day. I've skied it more recently. And I found it's a little bit snow condition dependent, kind of like what you were alluding to. It's almost like the softer the better for groomers.
I mean, you had nice soft You had some good powder days, basically.
Well, I had powder days, which we can
4,
we
5,
can
6 inches.
we can save the real powder conversation for off-piste, I
Yeah.
think. But just speaking to groomers, like the days that I had really, really nice packed powder groomers, the ski works really well because the shovel, like, you know, we talk about things like this every once in a while. It's already like bent into
Yeah.
the shape that you want it to be to make a carving turn. So if the snow was soft and like you just kind of let it do its thing, then the rest of the ski is pretty robust, and
Yeah.
you could stand on it and push it pretty hard. The thing that happened to me from time to time is if a couple things, like if I was on firmer snow and if I was really trying to drive a turn through the shovel, like initiate, which like is something that historically I've been bad at, and I've been trying to get better at, like starting a turn from the top of the ski
Yeah.
or the front of the ski. It doesn't particularly love that. Again, like specifically on firm snow.
Yeah.
Because this, like, you know, it's very tapered, and then like there's no edge up here. So
Right.
there's a limit to how much this is going to bite and pull you into a turn. So it's just a little bit interesting, and I think, like, as I've been saying a lot, like in this video quite a bit so far, is it feels like it's shifting its performance a little bit more towards off-piste and soft snow, which is totally fine. But given that, you know, if you're giving up a little bit on a groomer, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's still fine on a groomer.
I mean, who is maxing this ski out on a groomer? You know, like
Yeah, sure.
the top 10% of this 95 Ti was pretty difficult to find.
To attain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like there aren't that many people out there that are really going to be like pushing this ski past its limit.
Yeah.
Is there a limit if you wanted to compare it to, again, like an M7 Mantra, since that's kind of a good example in this width range? Certainly.
Yeah.
But then the way it handles soft snow is fantastic. And
Yep.
like I had on one of the powder days that you're talking about, do you remember skiing Perry Merrill with all the waves?
Yes.
There was like crazy either uphill or downhill wind while it snowed a lot, and it created these waves. So you would have like a couple inches of soft snow and then firm, or not firm, but then like corduroy.
Yeah.
And you were transitioning between the two really well. I made a mistake and almost fell pretty hard, but the ski handled that really well.
Yeah.
And I remember like 4 turns into that trail, I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, this is sweet. Because the shovel kind of like, it doesn't plow, but it absorbs and
Yeah.
kind of like accepts of a little bit of variance in the snow in front of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Whereas this or your
Would've just
M7
pushed
example
down.
just cuts through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would have felt catchier in
Yeah.
that kind of like, yeah, I've never really skied. I don't remember skiing that
It
exact.
happens a couple times a year around here where
Yeah.
it's just
Bizarre.
really interesting conditions.
Totally. My mom was visiting on that day, and I skied with her later, and she was like, this is crazy.
What is this?
Yeah. So that's about all I have to say about groomers.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for who should be on it, I think it's a massive range now. Because if you're like, you know, if you're a developing skier and you're looking to get into this mid-90 range, it's not like hard to ski. I think it's far
Right.
easier to ski than that Maverick 95 Ti was.
Yeah. This 95 is just way more precise,
Yeah,
especially at the start.
yeah.
You know, the bigger difference in these skis, especially on groomers and in soft snow for
just-
that
it's
matter,
just
is
here
from
up.
here up.
Totally. Yeah. But then, like, you know, I do think there's a high performance ceiling. And like you were saying, I think, like, realistically, there are very few skiers who will get to the limit of this ski and be disappointed.
Yep.
So, you want to talk about off-piste?
Yeah, because that's where it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about some comparison skis, and like for me, it has moved away from a discussion with Maverick 95 Ti where we were comparing it to things like cores and even things like mantras and enforcers,
Stance
and
96.
Stance 90, like skis with
Yeah.
metal. this now feels like the ski that came to mind for me, which is like a weird comparison, is the Rustler 9, because it's just so gosh darn capable,
Yeah.
like anywhere that you take it. And now I feel like that's true with this ski too, but a little bit more directional, or actually considerably more directional than a Rustler 9. And then like ripsticks kind of came up too as like a pretty similar thing. And actually when we were talking about the 88 and like, what is there a ski that has this much taper? Like my mind was like, ripstick 88's gotta
Yeah.
be pretty close. But this is more ski. It's more stout, it's more robust than a ripstick. Certainly much more like a ripstick 96 Black Edition, but even maybe a little bit more ski than that.
Maybe more like the older 96 Black Edition.
Yeah, but yeah, I am very impressed by its performance off-piste, and I think if you're looking for a really, really capable softer snow off-piste ski, but you don't want to go over 100, and you're more of a directional skier, like somebody like you, Bob,
Yeah.
I think this is a top candidate now.
I found that it excelled in areas that require more wiggle factor. So bumps and trees were a big plus
Yep.
for me.
Yep.
With kind of that more amenable shovel,
Yep.
easy to drive into the moguls while tail is supportive and
Yeah.
yet still has some rocker to it. So I thought it was really fun in the moguls, especially because you can get that tip to just kind of stay on top and move around.
Yeah.
And then in the trees as well, same theory applies.
Yeah.
The ski does a lot of the work in terms of being more smeary and a little bit more surfy than we've had with Maverick in the past. And then also compared to other skis in this range with some varying combination of metal and carbon, this shovel shape really is amenable to making those shiftier turns.
Yeah. A bunch of you skied it down Hayride on our media day,
Yep.
and like that was like firmer. It was still good snow, like
Yeah.
probably packed powder, but it wasn't like fresh snow. And I was filming in this particular moment, but I've been thinking about it too. Like this shape combined with a good amount of vibration damping handles that stuff pretty well too, because it doesn't feel catchy or challenging to ski, but it also doesn't feel like too pingy. Like the old Maverick could get kind of pingy in that like steep, technical, but also firm application.
Yeah, because to make a ski like this 95 Ti, as stiff as it is and as light as it is, and we've talked about this with cores, generally comes along with pinginess.
Yep.
So you do have to make some type of
Yeah.
some type of balance or trade. And in this case, it's width of shovel.
Yep.
It's a little bit thinner of a profile, more taper, and just not as much stiff material in the very end.
Yeah. I had a couple runs down lift line with some pretty good fresh snow
And high speeds.
and high speeds.
Yeah.
Maybe won't come across on camera because it's tough, but if you've skied lift line, it probably should come across on camera because it's tough to keep things going on lift line. You're generally shutting it down a lot on that trail.
Yeah, it's tough to let it run.
You can make like a couple turns and then you instinctually
Yeah.
want to shut it down. I did. I tried to let it run a little bit more than I generally do. We don't ski lift line a ton, but I thought it absolutely excelled in that terrain and those conditions. And I remember stopping halfway down and saying it out loud. I was like, "That's what that ski is really good at."
Right.
Like, if you want to ski fast and aggressively through soft snow and variable conditions and choppy terrain, it's really, really good because, again, like this shovel acts as like an absorption thing.
Well, it's like half flotation, half absorption.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's a pretty cool mix.
Yeah, but it just, the way it interacts with soft snow is really confidence inspiring and very easy. Like you just trust it instinctually and intuitively. But then like back here, it's pretty stiff.
Yeah.
So you can, like, in that lift line terrain, you're just plowing, kind of just cutting through choppy snow, but then also going fast, and it's firm underneath, and it's a steep trail, and you needed the reliability of a pretty strong ski back
Yeah.
here. So, yeah, really good.
Yeah, for whatever reason, we get questions a lot about what's better. We kind of deal with people wondering like what's better for this, that, or the other thing, and it's really hard to quantify that, as
Yep.
we've talked about a lot. But you can also say that this thing does certain things better, and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel as good for other skiers
Yeah,
than either this outgoing 95, which I would assume a lot of people were pleased as punch at how precise and reactive and strong that was.
Yep.
And they might not feel that this is better for them. But
Yep.
once you get into softer snow, the script kind of flips.
Completely.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I don't I think Atomic did a good job
Yeah.
in this new ski. I think taking away a touch of precision on firm snow is fine.
Yeah.
Because do mid 90 all mountain skis need to be precise? Some of them, sure. Do they all? No.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about? It's mid 90. Like, this is a pretty squarely in the all mountain category. And Atomic makes like 10,000 Redster skis.
Right. They have a very robust on-piste
Yeah.
category.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think it just allows them to kind of place this where they want it to be, and at least in my perception, they want it to be a little bit more free-ridey.
Yep. Yeah,
So-
and they really went all out to try to make it to be a true all conditions and all terrain ski.
Yeah, very, very good one ski quiver.
Yeah.
If you just want to own one pair of skis, I think Maverick 96 CTI is a strong candidate.
Yeah.
Because it's just about as well-rounded as they come. I can't think of something off the top of my head in this range that I would just confidently say is more well-rounded. Can you?
No, I think
You could make arguments. But
sure. Skis like we had mentioned the Stance 96, or even we always talk about mid 90s is a great place to be for that
Yeah.
thing. If you
Yeah.
want one that really covers a ton of ground, then yeah, you want some metal, you want some width, you want some rocker.
Yeah.
That's this.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think like you had mentioned, the 88's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And then kind of how this 96 fits into the 105.
Yeah, which doesn't change for next year. It does get a new graphic. So
Yeah.
I feel like that was obvious, but we didn't really mention it specifically.
Yeah. But just kind of aligning yourself as a skier and what you do most of the time would be a good way to navigate through the Maverick world.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So yeah, we'll talk about the 88 in another video. We'll wait a little bit. We don't think we need to have a very, very similar conversation
Right away.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we definitely will get to that because we've seen a lot of people asking about the 88 too. And like we said, a lot of this applies to 88, but there are definitely some differences too. And it does feel like that ski excels at slightly different things.
Yeah.
So let us know if you have any questions about Maverick 96 CTI or 88. We can answer them
Yeah, I'll
before,
jump in on those,
before
sure.
we get there. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.